How did I get here? He thought, sitting up slowly and looking around him. Why am I in a boat? How did I get out here in the middle of the ocean? His mind reeled with questions. But one thing was for sure. He was alone, in a small boat, with nothing but a lamp to illuminate the darkness. The sky was pitch black. No stars, no moon, no clouds, nothing. He tried the engine. Dead. Hello? Help! He cried. As expected, nothing. He sat down and checked his pockets. Nothing but a $20 note and a small piece of paper saying, "Was it worth it?" Puzzled, he began looking around. Upon further inspection, he felt something strange in the air, an almost metallic smell, which was a confusing change from the ocean's normal salty smell. He took the lamp and held it over the side of the boat. The water was red. He suddenly heard a voice. It said, "Was it worth it?" He quickly looked up to see two bloodshot eyes staring back at him. He fell back in horror and screamed. A humanoid shadow was floating just off the boat, barely a foot away. He couldn't make it out. He was too afraid, and there wasn't enough light. "Who are you?" he said, trying to keep calm. "Was your life worth throwing away?" it said. "What life?" he yelled. "I was a waste of space." "Death would be so much easier," he insisted. "You do not regret this?" it said, not changing tone at all. "Never!" he shouted. The figure faded into darkness, leaving him alone once more. He looked at the paper again, shrugged it off, and folded it back into his pocket. He heard a loud sound of several voices saying, "Was it worth it?" He looked up in fright to see a circle of other figures surrounding the boat. He decided to muster whatever courage he had, took a deep breath, and held the lamp up towards them. They resembled humans, only without skin, and the red water dripping from them. Not water. He opened his mouth to scream, but just then they moved, lowering back into the Red Sea. Just as he was able to sit down and collect himself, the boat began flowing along the crimson waves. He began to feel very nauseous and lightheaded, and blacked out within seconds. The next thing he knew, he was awakening in a different boat, bigger, and there were many other people aboard. "Are you okay?" the man asked, helping him up. "Fine," he replied. "I feel a bit woozy." "We all do," the man said. "Do you know what's happening?" he asked, slowly sitting up. "No clue. None of us have any idea," the man said. As the boat kept moving, everyone felt an uncontrollable silent dread consume them. With no noise but the red waves, carrying them to whatever destination no one dared to imagine. No one spoke or moved an inch. All they could do was look to one another and to the slightly visible red ocean. He was horrified to see the other people. Men, women, teenagers, even some clearly abused children. Suddenly, someone at the front of the ship, is a better word for it, yelled, "Land ahead, everyone! We're heading to an island!" Everyone jolted up from where they sat and looked where the man in front pointed. He was right. There was an island, but considering their situation and everything they had just been through, this was most likely not good news. The dread they all felt intensified. Some even sobbed mournfully to themselves. Pretty soon, the ship hit the shore. Everyone contemplated stepping off. It was eventually decided that, as long as they were together, they could cope with anything. They stepped off the ship and began walking. No one knew where they were going. They all, however, felt drawn somehow to the centre of the island. After walking for a surprisingly short time, they were there, a large cave beneath a volcano. As they all walked in, the first thing they saw were the words, carved into the cave's entrance, the phrase he had heard so many times now. Was it worth it? He pulled out the note from his pocket, which everyone else did in an almost synchronized fashion. All of them had that one phrase on them. And then it hit them. The visions, the red ocean, the notes, the figure that had appeared to all of them, asking if they regretted their decision. It all made sense. Everyone's jaws dropped, tears swelled up, and everyone was hit with the sad, spirit-crushing truth. They all knew why they were here. To his surprise, no one panicked. They all just kept moving, looking just as sad and melancholy as he was. Just as they walked through the narrow, tunnel-esque corridors the cave had to offer, the walls turned red and breathy and began beating like a heart. But no one had a real, physical reaction. They just kept moving, most looking down in despair. As they turned a corner, wounds began to show on all their bodies, some with needle-sized holes in their arms. Others' hair stood up as water began to drip from their bodies, along with electrical currents swelling up and down. Others with large bruises around their necks. But most, deep gashes across their wrists. He was one of these people. Despite all of this, no one seemed to react and simply accepted what was happening. As they continued, they heard the faint cries of what sounded like their grief-stricken, heartbroken loved ones and family. Then finally, the heart of the cave, where a collection of human organs and arteries formed a hooded and cloaked figure. Was it worth it? Was all it said. Then, faces began to form on the fleshy shroud it wore, crying loudly. Then, all the faces turned and stared at the silent, glum people, and all together said, "Join us." And just as they finished talking, The shroud enveloped everyone. He awoke to the sound of cries, and he soon saw where it came from. He, and everyone else, were now moulded into the cloak of flesh, all crying, all regretting their decisions. All he could do was join the horrible symphony of the dead.